Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Classroom Matters with me, your host, Christy Houle. And today on our episode, I am delighted to be talking with Greg and Beth Langston. Now, Greg and Beth have more than 20 years of experience working with students and young professionals to help them gain confidence by empowering them to use their strengths and values to set goals and develop individual plans for their lives. They truly understand how helpless parents can feel and challenges of starting a child on the college or career path that fits them best, especially when that child doesn't even know what they want to study. Beth, a graduate of Purdue University, the College of Education, has helped hundreds of students navigate the college application essay process with tremendous success. And Greg, who graduated from the Purdue Krannert School of Business, has led businesses in excess of $1 billion and worked in 65 countries, mentoring hundreds of young professionals. Together, they believe students deserve the tools to discover their unique core values, strengths, goals, and purpose. Now, that's a lot. Thanks for coming on the show, Greg and Beth, but it's all wonderful, wonderful things. So welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
We've been looking forward to it, Christy.
Yeah, so we're going to have to dive right in and sort of unpack a lot of things in the introduction because you guys have done so many wonderful things over the span of what you've done in the last 20 years. You're still doing wonderful things. So let's start with just giving our listeners a little bit of background and what you've been doing and the journey to sort of what you're doing today.
Well, we really started with our own children. They were our guinea pigs back in the day.
And they're still alive.
Yes, they survived. And so we raised our kids overseas, really, when they were little. So by the time our son was 13 years old, he had been to 12 schools in 5 different countries. So it was wonderful. They both learned foreign language, which was wonderful. They gained appreciation for other cultures, which is amazing. Like when we lived in Singapore, at the Singapore American School, there were 76 nationalities represented. So it was like a little United Nations there. It was fascinating. And they had friends from every country, many other countries. So, and as an educator, I was very involved in their schooling in these different countries. Sometimes we homeschooled because we were in transitioning school years. Sometimes we had a school for other kids in our home. When we lived in Mexico, we had 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade in our house for other expatriate kids because we weren't thrilled with the education they were getting at that time. And another time, we lived in Mexico twice. The other time we moved there, and our kids were the only English speakers in their whole school. So we would spend 2 to 4 hours a night with our Spanish-English dictionary in one hand and their homework in the other and just plow through it. So we were getting it done, but we knew we needed to return to the US by the time they were in high school anyway, because we wanted to start preparing them for the college application process. The problem was we got here and we were very disappointed. And Greg, as an executive, he had been provided hours of executive training and coaching, and this equipped him with leadership skills and team player skills, helped him to be the great guy that he is. And but he kept saying, why didn't I get to learn this 20 years ago? Why did I have to wait? And why aren't we teaching this to our kids? So with Greg's executive experience and my educational background, we started developing tools on our own to try on our children, and it was working. And so then we branched out to their friends in our workshops, and then we started to have workshops in the area. At that time, we lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and we just saw the need for it and the success of it, and the transformation that we saw in our students was amazing.
And that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then since then, we put it all online.
Yes.
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID. We aren't doing workshops right now anymore, but it's all
in person.
now.
Yeah. So talk a little bit, and I want to bring that into the conversation right at the beginning, the resources that you have online at College Flight Plan. .com, because that's really the crux of what you're doing for folks now. And it's, let me tell you, it is fascinating. And the minute that I met both of you and found out about you and we connected, I was on that website because I have a son that's a senior this year. I also have a son that is in 8th grade who's already started talking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a treasure trove of help. So talk a little bit about the website and the work that you're doing there.
Sure. Basically, we're a resource to help parents navigate the college admissions process, or in some cases, it might not be college. You help the student do the self-discovery to find out, I'm not well suited to go to college at this year. I should take a gap year, which is something relatively new, but something that we encourage. If college is not the right thing, you don't want to spend the money and then drop out. Or we may find that through the self-discovery, a student and a family may find that the student is not well suited for college, that they might be a great pipe fitter, or they might be fantastic as a welder or in construction. And what this enables is a family to really go in and do a deep self-discovery of the student to see, what are they passionate about? Let's make sure that they pick what they're motivated to do, not what somebody else is saying that they should do.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you say that, Greg, because I think that times are shifting where, when I was younger and in middle school and high school and getting to those ages where I had to make those decisions, sort of like you said, students sometimes feel pressure from their families or from other people that there's only one route. There's only one thing, right? If you don't go to college, then, oh, you must not be doing what, you're supposed to be doing. So I'm glad that you bring up, this is not just a service that you provide to help students get into college, write the applications, fill out the forms, because that's daunting, but also just to discover what path is right for them. And I think that's something that's so valuable, especially in, today's world of, and I say kids because to me, these are, they're my children's age and your children's age, and
Right.
so young adults trying to find their path. And so, do you know what the current statistics or research are on the number of kids that drop out of college because they just weren't sure of what they wanted to do?
Sure. The statistics for college are pretty daunting. And so parents and educators alike that are listening will, I think, know some of these numbers. Some of them might be new, but only 40% of college graduates today graduate in 4 years. A full 60% take 6 years to graduate. 6 years. And when you think that the college, in-state college cost is on the low end, $30,000 for in-state, $47,000 for out-of-state, private schools, $50,000, and then the Ivies and the more rarefied air schools are up around $80,000. That extra 2 years can mean, $100,000 to $160,000 of extra debt. Now, why are the students taking 60% of them taking 6 years? It's because 60% of them change majors at least 3 times, which means they're not doing the self-discovery to figure out what they want to do. I have one example, an educator who's been in the educating market for 38 years, his own son, and he's a very senior educator in the local school system. His son changed majors 7 times in college. And he just kept moving from one thing to another, and that's extremely costly. And so what we're trying to do is help the students to save that time, save that frustration, and save that money for themselves and the families, because school debt is 1.7 trillion. It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crazy. Tuition level is crazy. And I think there's so much pressure for young people to go to college. From the high school wants to get credit for, we have 99% of our kids going to these schools, and they name them. And a lot of children or graduates, high school graduates, don't even want to walk the stage at graduation if they're not going to one of those elite schools, because they're almost embarrassed. Or if they choose to take a gap year, or if they choose another career, it's like nobody's supporting them in this area. We need to recognize that there are other ways to go besides college.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad that you're bringing up those points too, Beth, because as you are both talking, Greg, about the debt and the self-discovery, and you now bringing up the gap year, which I love the way that you say that, the gap year. I'm going to start using that with my son, because if he's not sure, I'm saying, I'm like, just take a year off, but saying the gap year sounds a little bit more, professional. But So why are these kids in high school? Like, is it something that's lacking in the public education system and that they're not getting that they should be getting before they graduate? Is there still a stigma on not going to college, not knowing what you want to do the day you graduate from high school? So what is the issue and why are we seeing this problem?
Well, I'll give you a statistic that really will accentuate the question you just asked. A recent study was done asking people that are 16 to 29 what their meaning is, and if they have meaning and if they have purpose. A full 87% of those people questioned said, "I have no purpose or no meaning." So that tells you they're not getting it in high school. And right now, you've got, in addition, in the high school years, the student engagement is in the low 30%. Whereas when they're in fifth grade, it's at 75%. Once they get into high school, they are really disengaged. And so that's why it's really important that a family, teachers really help the student, do the self-discovery. And the challenge that exists is that in the United States today, on average, there are 424 students per college counselor. And so it's almost impossible for even Superwoman or Superman to be able to give that in-depth training and support for each one of those 424 students.
And out here in California, we have 900 per college counselor. The recommended amount is in the 200s somewhere. So I think a lot of parents assume that the high school is going to do everything for them in preparing children for their future careers. And it just doesn't happen. They don't have, I don't know why it's not in high schools. To me, this is something that is so important to us, right? And the people appreciate it. Even adults, parents, at the end of this, our process that we go through, the parents are saying, could you do that for us too? We would love an adult program doing the same thing that we're doing for these high schoolers. But here in California, we're actually talking to the school system to try to get it started. We're going to do a pilot program here, and hopefully they'll start developing maybe their own self-discovery, self-awareness.
In fairness, I think a lot of the schools are trying to do that with the SEL training, social emotional learning. But what we're finding, as good as social emotional learning is, and talking about how do you feel, what is important to you, how do you come across to others, while that is good, there's a discussion about those subjects and how do you think you're impacting somebody else, and are you being bullied, and so on and so forth. The thing that we see that is missing and we put into our program is it's important to understand your values and how you add value to others, but then what is the next step? How do you put that into action in your daily life? What behaviors are you going to take today, tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now, that will provide you with a successful career and one that you're passionate about? And that's what we don't see existing. And that's something that we've incorporated into the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And everything that you guys are talking about, it's like the dream, right? So I'm sitting here thinking about everything that you're saying and having a pilot program in high schools and the number of students to counselor. And like you said, no matter who you are, there's no way that one person can help 400, 600, 800 kids decide what they want to do for the rest of their lives. It's a big decision. And, I'm reminded of a guest that I had on the show a while back that said, we have to stop asking kids at 10, 11, 12 years old, what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you grow up? Because they don't really know. And then when they tell us, we're not really guiding them down that path. We're just saying, oh, you want to do that? Okay, well, that's great. Good, good job, good luck. But then we sort of drop it, right? And we just let them continue through the education system. So what age do you feel that we need to start truly having this self-discovery begin for students?
Well, for the youngers, for the littles, there are great books about what are your strengths and how did you show your strengths at school today? Things we should be asking kids when they come home from school or after they've been with other friends and things. How did you show your kindness today? How did you demonstrate that? So that they begin to realize they've got these great strengths and they're recognizing them. It's recognizing them. And then For us, for our program, we like to do freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and even seniors. Senior year gets busy, even junior year is very busy. Seniors are extremely busy with this application process, which we do help with the essays and pulling all the great stuff out of their brains and their experiences to put it on that paper. But sometimes we get seniors after they've already applied, then they go through our discovery process, which also helps them go into the rest of their lives. And but we also recommend that students, as young as you can, take advantage of opportunities to try out that profession that you think you might like. Ride along with someone. There's so many people out there, small businesses, large businesses, who are willing to take these kids for a week. Even a week gives a good example of it, or two. Our son was a great example of this. His whole life he thought he wanted to be in the medical field, and then as he got a little older, I want to be a surgeon. So he was able to ride along and go in the operating room with a neurosurgeon and a cardiovascular surgeon. And after the end of that internship, unpaid, of course, just ride along, he said, that is not at all what I want to do. And good thing he found that out before he went through years of medical school and the expense. Anyway, he went into the financial world, but just having had that little bit of experience in that and seeing what it's really like instead of what we imagine it to be like, then he knew, I didn't want to do that. That's not my gift.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about those opportunities, that your son was able to have. He was lucky enough to be able to kind of dip his toe into the medical field pond, and then realize this is not what I want to do. Thankfully, he realized that soon enough, and then was able, right? Thankfully for both of you, he was able to realize that. But, I often wonder, we sometimes get into this tug of war between balance of educators and parents. And so I know that our listeners, we have a lot of parents listening, whether they're just parents of high school students or homeschool parents. We have a lot of educators listening. And where does that role and that balance fall between those groups of people?
Well, I think the educators are great and they're doing their job, but they can't do every job. And so as parents, we recommend that you get the outside help you might need for your student, for your child who you know really well. And so we recommend different areas, especially the area of test prep, like ACT, SAT, get outside help there, because really that's just a strategy of how to take the test. To me, I feel it doesn't test intelligence as much as it tests, do you know how to take our test? Do you know what we're looking for? And there's a definite time strategy, everything. We also recommend outside help on writing those essays. Those are key. Yes, the teachers are helping them in the schools. I see that, but still, to get outside help who doesn't have so many essays to look at, who can really give a different opinion, not too many opinions on these essays, because we want the kids to be writing about themselves, and but getting help on that. Also, there are many scholarships out there. The teachers and the school are not going to be able to tell you of all the scholarships that are available, and many of them go unrewarded because nobody knows about them. And so there are agencies that can help you do that. And then the other thing we recommend that the school can't do for everybody is the self-discovery, because if they are planning to go to college or are planning to seek out a job somewhere else, everybody is looking for students who know who they are and where they're going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I want to circle back to the college application process. You've talked about essays, you've talked about the self-discovery phase, but I really want to just talk a little bit because I don't know if people are really truly aware. I wasn't, and I tend to feel that, I'm paying attention most times and, have a lengthy background in education. But when you talk about the college application process and the essay process and all of these things that these universities require to even get accepted and then for admission, what kind of process are we looking at for those parents that are like, what? I didn't even realize that these things were needed. And how much time does that normally take to get it right? And how important is that to the student getting accepted or not getting accepted?
Yeah. So after 20 years of this, there are three things that we've found that the admissions officers are looking for in the applicants. First of all, as I said, they want students who know who they are and where they're going. And so the number one thing is academic success. Of course, this gives every student permission to play, to get their foot in the door. If you don't qualify academically, and if you haven't been taking those, courses, a rigorous
For the practice
course,
tests.
yes, then you may not get your foot in the door there. You also have to have the test scores and everything like that. So high GPA, pursue a quality curriculum, seek courses outside the classroom. Also, that there's a place in the application that you can address those and talk about those, and then getting help with the standardized tests. So that's the number one thing they're looking for, academic success. The second thing is extracurricular accomplishments. And this prepares teens for extracurricular success by having them deeply involved in a community project, not surface involvement, not just filling those, I need 325 community hours. They want to see leadership positions, not necessarily a captain or president of a club, but that servant leadership attitude too, which we address in our essays sometimes. The in-depth commitment to the activity, a sport or anything like that is key. And they love entrepreneurial spirits. Like during COVID, we had some students who went through the neighborhood. They did flyers and they developed a website, and they collected food for all those students that were not in school to get their meals. A lot of kids, that's where they get fed, is in school, at least breakfast and lunch. And so they collected food in the neighborhood and took it to the agency that would distribute it to all those kids that needed it. So it was great. And then they did it again at Thanksgiving. So it was working for them. And they also, the extracurricular part, they're looking for people who have sought out internships, sought out on the job, experience with different things. And we can write to that too. And then the third thing they're looking for are students with a profound self-knowledge, self-discovery, and a clear direction. And it's very important to empower our students to understand and express who they are with confidence and clarity in order to gain a sense of control over their lives. And admissions officers search for students who are like this, who know their values and their strengths and weaknesses, and can articulate that in their essays or in their interviews. And those students are rare. They are rare. So we help them along in that process. But those are the three things. They want to know who the students are, why you are here, what is unique about you, and what matters to you.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like a really lengthy, like I'm tired just listening to all of the things.
I know.
I mean, and I'm sure that it is, right? I know that obviously I haven't applied for a college in blank years, but it was a process then. So I can only imagine now. And are most students still applying to multiple universities? And so now we're taking all of that work that you just talked about, and we're multiplying that by 2 or 3 or 4 in some instances. And I can't see what's your fingers.
I would say the average
10?
is,
you said 10, Greg?
8.
10.
The average is 8 to 10. Yeah. And sometimes we narrow it down. A lot of times students come to me and they've got, 12 to 15 schools on their list. But once they see that some of these schools also require supplemental essays, which are a lot, they already have to write the 650-word personal statement, which is what we always get done first. And then I give them the list of their supplementals, and they're like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to apply to that one. That's too much writing. They just don't have the time to do it all if they start late.
Or maybe if they go through the self-discovery, whatever that might be, they may say, well, I really like to do this, I want to be a biology major, and one of the schools that they have does not offer a good curriculum in biology. And so they deselect that. Otherwise, they could have possibly gone to the school and found, I'm here, and now they don't have what I want to do. So now what am I going to do? And so that contributes to the changing majors.
And another way for them to succeed in the universities that they want to go to is to request an interview with some alumni in the area, or somebody on the phone call that admissions office with an intelligent, well thought through question that you would like to have answered. So they keep track of this. They keep track of the students that show a demonstrated interest in their university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you don't work in this field, you don't know these things.
You don't.
I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't even think about what you just said, that last thing about interviewing an alumni or talking to other folks. Like, I would never even think of that. And again, I work in the field of education. And so, one of my biggest thoughts right now, my question is, how long does this process take? Let's say that I have a son that is, sophomore, junior, senior, and I'm like, wow, I really want to go through this process with Greg and Beth, with the college flight plan, self-discovery, all the way through college application process. What's the time?
Our process takes 12 hours. It's a 3-phase process. It takes 12 hours to go through.
But not in one sitting.
Correct. That's one of the beauties of an executive working together with an educator. We said, okay, how do we make this work for young students? And so the videos are on average 2.5 minutes long.
Okay.
And so that's the average. We live in a short short attention span world today. And so it's all mobile enabled. It all integrates with online workbooks and or paper workbooks if you want that. And so the student goes through it in a very sequence approach that we layer on the insights. And it takes 12 hours to go through.
So they can do it in a very short time. There's only one, we do a 360 assessment that depends on sending out a survey to 8 of their trusted advisors to get some information back for the student. So that's the only outlying people that we just depend on getting the information back to the student. So really they could finish this in a week, right?
In a week to 2 weeks, if a student dedicates the time, and we have them do that in that time frame, they can come away with all the self-discovery that they need. And what's unique about our program is, rather than have the parents say, okay, I paid for this program, now tell me what was school like, or what was this program like, and the student grunts and said, fine, it was great,
yeah,
he loved it, I hated it. What the student has to do is they have to present to 2 parties. One are their parents, and the other part that's unique to this process is they pick an accountability partner. We don't pick it. They pick an accountability partner who's going to help them go through this process. Because we have found statistically, if you say you're going to do something and the likelihood is in the single digits. If you tell people, I'm going to lose 5 pounds, or I'm going to gain, strength, or whatever, I'm going to get better at this grade. If you tell other people, the likelihood is 65%. If, however, you have an accountability partner, like you when you're dealing with a trainer, or we have financial planners, that accountability partner then raises the percentage of completion to 95%. So that's why it's very important to have an accountability partner to help the student go through the process. And again, this is picked by the student. Then they also report out to their parents what they found. And so at the end of the process, what they do, they are able to articulate, what are my values and why are they important to me? What are my strengths? Because they get 200 data points of information from the trusted advisors in terms of, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, this is how you add value to others. These are 3 majors. Each one says, these are 3 majors that I think, or professions that I think you should work in. And they get all that information and compile that. They then say, as a result of some other assessments that they take, these are the ways that I instinctively solve problems, so that they are clear in understanding that they might be a real critical thinker and do certain things and be able to express that. They then create, with all that information, their distinct natural ability statement. And most young people say, I'm not really sure what I'm good at. We help them to craft a paragraph that says, this is my wheelhouse. I'm really good at doing this. And this is my distinct natural ability, which then leads them to be able to create their purpose statement, which then helps them to say, okay, this is what I want to do that's beyond my grades. This is what I want to do to contribute to the rest of my life, which is all pretty impressive stuff. Then they say to their parents, these are my lifetime goals in the area of health, wealth, wisdom, and relationship. And they have 5 for each one of them. These are my 5-year goals to support that, my 1-year goals. And these are currently the bad habits that I have that are negatively impacting my ability to do that. And they universally come back with 2 things. One is social media, and not all social media is bad, but a lot of it is not good. And the other one is not enough sleep. That's universal. But this is not coming from the parents. This is coming from the student telling their parents this.
Mm-hmm.
They then say, with those goals and those objectives, these are my 3 areas of focus that I want to have a major in. And we pick 3 because they have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary, so that they have focus. Because some kids freak out when you say it's only one major. So what they do is they pick the college majors that best suit them based upon that self-discovery.
Or if they've decided college isn't for them.
Right. If they decide the college isn't for them, then they say that. Then what they do is they create an elevator speech, which is a 150-word statement that's 1 minute long, press play, and they can project it to classmates, teacher, somebody they're looking for a job, and then they incorporate all of that into this document that I'm describing, and they say, Mom and Dad, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And it's typically a drop the mic moment, because the parents are like, oh my gosh, how did you get my son or daughter to figure this out?
It's amazing to be in that meeting actually with the parents, because they see such a transformation in their kids. Sometimes it brings them to tears. I mean, but they're always shocked. They're always shocked because they see the clarity in the kids knowing their values and their strengths and their weaknesses and their purpose and what they want to do with their life. It's clear. Then they see the new confidence in this child of theirs, that because they clearly understand and can articulate what makes them unique and different. And it helps a lot with their job interviews, college interviews, application process, essays. And then they love that their child has that sense of control over their future because they have actionable plans and goals. I mean, a lot of these kids have never set goals before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm just sitting here listening to that and I'm imagining, that meeting and all of those things sort of circling back. And I'm like, I bet, it is a mic drop. It is like a mind-blowing moment to see your child who you've probably, like you said, Beth, aren't setting goals. And if they have a job, a part-time job, you don't see them in that environment. You're not seeing them interact with other people in a professional environment because they go to work and they come home. And, so I can just imagine seeing your child have that transformation. And you're just like, wow, where is my kid? This is amazing. He knows what he wants to do. He's really thought about this. So I think that this self-discovery phase, and not to lessen the importance of the college application help and the essays and all that, but I really feel that there's not a child in 9th through 12th grade that doesn't need this in their life. I mean, I really, truly believe that because they just aren't getting that. Because parents are busy, teachers don't have time. So I think that it's just really important that kids are getting this opportunity to discover who they are and what they want to do. So they do feel better about their choices. And they are, it's the most important thing that we can do for our kids as parents is to help them discover that next step that they want to take once they have finished high school. And we pay for people to come and clean our house. We pay for people to come and paint our house. We pay to go to the gym. We pay for all these things. Why in the world would we not pay for something this important that is going to be one of the most important things that our children can do in their lives? So I don't know, maybe, can I say it anymore? People, this is a big deal. Get this done. I'm so excited about this. And do you have kids or parents that come back to you after you've done this with them and just say, this is the best thing that could have ever happened for my kid?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And then they send us their next kid. So, which is great because they want the same thing. And of course, they wish we were doing this for adults too. But I mean, anybody, you could go through our program. You just wouldn't be naming what you're going to major in or what career you're going to get, but you learn a lot about yourself. So, and the other thing about this, the parents are so much more at peace with whatever career the child may want to pursue now, because they do see that it fits into their unique qualities that they have. And maybe they hadn't realized that before.
I will also say that it's very helpful in certain situations where you might have a family where type A father, type A mom, or we have this as well in certain cultures, the patriarch says, we are all lawyers. Your mom's a lawyer, your uncle's a lawyer, you're a lawyer, everybody's a lawyer. you want to be an architect, there's no way. What this empowers a student to be able to do is go through the self-discovery and say, based upon all these facts and this information, Mom and Dad, I'm presenting to you, that I would really not be a good lawyer. It's not a question of if I'm going to get out of the house or not. I'm passionate and I know I can contribute by being a fantastic architect. So would you please allow me to do this? And so it really empowers the student, and it also, to Beth's point, de-stresses the family because, in some of these cultures, you're either a doctor or a lawyer. I mean, that's basically the only two things. And those are very renowned professions. But in some cases, the student wouldn't be good at doing that. And the student now has the clarity. And then they also have the sense of ownership to say, I've chosen to go out on my own and do this. Now let me prove to myself and to my family that I made the right choice.
So tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can get more information on these resources, and to get in touch with you.
First of all, anybody can email me at any time, beth@collegeflightplan.com or greg@collegeflightplan.com. We're here to help, answer questions, whatever we need.
And as Beth mentioned, it's collegeflightplan.com. And for your audience, we put together a document called the Parent Starter Kit to Teen Self-Discovery. And it's a 33-page document that includes lots of the statistics that we share, the 5 key early things that families can do to figure this process out because they're not getting it from schools, some free assessments that we recommend, as well as ACT and SAT resources, because it is a process that you need to figure out how it's done. And that information is there, as well as the scholarship and cost resources. So all that information is at collegeflightplan.com/guide.
Well, thank you both so much. I cannot stress enough how important I think this is, and not just for students that are in their junior or senior year, but really parents could be looking into this as early as 8th grade, 9th grade, so that they're getting prepared and know what they want to do. And, hey, if it's something that you're thinking, I know it's something that I need to pay for, it might not be in my budget, start early, start saving money for this college flight plan stuff, because I can promise you, I've been on the website, I've looked at some of the stuff, it's definitely worth it. And thank you so much for just all of the work that you're doing to, assist kids with figuring out who they are. And, kids need help, a lot of extra help these days. They're struggling. So I really applaud you for all of the work that you continue to do. And thank you so much for being on the show. It's been fun.
Well, thanks for having us, Christy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And this is Christy Houle signing off for this episode of Classroom Matters. And don't forget to check out all of our free resources on the educate.today website.